I want to wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos. This week's portion is Parshas Bechukosai, and the first pasuk, the first verse in this week's parsha is in Bechukosai telechu, v'es mitzvosai tishmeru, v'asisem osam. If you will follow my decrees and observe my commandments and perform them. So Rashi asks the question, what does it mean to follow my decrees? Says Rashi, it can't mean to do the mitzvos, to do the commandments, to do the mitzvos in the Torah, because the very next part of the verse says to observe the mitzvos, to observe the commandments. So what does it mean to follow my decrees? Says Rashi, Yachol zeh kiyam hamitzvos, kishu omer v'es mitzvosai tishmeru v'gomer, harei kiyam hamitzvos omer. It's referring to the actual doing the mitzvos at the next part of the verse. Hamayni mekayim. Very fascinating. So Rashi says, what does it mean in the beginning of the verse? It means that you should be engrossed in Torah study. We should be committed to Torah study. A Jewish person has that commitment to the study of Torah day and night, to have a set time to study Torah every day and every night. And that commitment follows through with keeping the mitzvos. And it's not just learning Torah, but being engrossed in it. Something called amelus b'Torah. Even when it's difficult and it's hard for us to grasp or understand, but we persevere and we work hard to understand the words of and the laws of the Torah. It's very interesting. In the very beginning of Pirkei Avos, in Ethics of Our Fathers, the second Mishnah in says, Shimon HaTzadik Hu hayomer, Shimon HaTzadik, Simon the Righteous, he used to say, Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omed, the world stands on three things, three pillars, three spiritual pillars the world stands on. Al HaTorah, v'al ha'avoda, v'al gemilas chasadim, on Torah study and fulfillment of the Torah, on avoda, on service, literally, which means the temple service when we had a temple. Nowadays it means prayer and praying to God. And on gemilas chasadim, acts of kindness, doing acts of kindness towards our fellow. So, very fascinating. The Maharal on this Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Rabbi Lowy, the Maharal, Rabbi Yehuda Lowy, who lived in the 1600s, he says something very fascinating. He connects this Mishnah, that the world stands on these three pillars, with the three cardinal sins. We know in Judaism that it's better to transgress the Torah than to give up one's life. If it's life or death, then we transgress whatever it is. There are three exceptions, and that is the three cardinal sins. The Gemara in Tractate Sanhedrin says that avodah zarah, gili arayis, and shvichas damim, that idolatry, idol worship, if a person says either worship this idol or I'll kill you, or murder this person, or I will kill you, or immorality, certain immoral relationships a person should commit, or I will kill you, it's better to give up one's life than to transgress them. Those are the only three out of all the 613 mitzvos, the 613 commandments in the Torah. So the Maharal explains what's the reason. He says because they correspond to the three pillars in Ethics of Our Fathers. And he explains very simply. First of all, murder. The antithesis of murder is acts of kindness towards your fellow. So one of the three principles, foundations that the whole world stands on is acts of kindness, being with giving charity and helping out, and any way we can helping another person. So that is corresponding to murder. That's why you can't murder, because it's a foundation of the whole world, of the entire world. The next one is avoda, is prayer, connecting to God, the one true creator. So idolatry is negating that foundation, the whole pillar. So therefore a person can't transgress it. The third one is very interesting. The third one, says the Maharal, the third one is Gili Arayis, immorality. And says the Maharal, that corresponds to Torah study. The antithesis of immorality is Torah study. And he explains as follows. He says that when a person is immoral and sexual, relations that are forbidden, that is the most base part of a human being. That's doing the most base, animalistic, base part that a person can do. So when we curb that, right? We had earlier a few weeks ago. We're called kedoshim. We're called. Rashi says that we're called holy. That we're separate. We elevate ourselves. Says the Maharal, the antithesis of that is Torah study, because Torah study is the most spiritual thing a person can do in this world. Even mitzvos, when a person hears the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, or he takes a lulav and esrog, or he gives $1 or a few dollars he gives to charity to a poor person. He's doing an act, so it's a physical act. Infused, he makes it a spiritual act. But Torah study, learning Torah with our brains and our words, it's something completely, it is not physical at all. It's something completely spiritual. So that is the opposite of immorality. And this is a very fascinating thing. Nowadays, there's so much immorality, there's so much schmutz, we call it, on the internet, so much bad things wherever we turn. So how does a person navigate? So of course a person could set up a filter, and we should have filters and blockers to block these things out. But a person has to realize that we have the opposite of that. The opposite of that is to engross ourselves in Torah study, to be involved in the study of Torah. And when a person's involved and he sweats, and he or she, they sweat and they toil with Torah to understand the true intent of the law and understand it each according to their level, and they persevere, that elevates, that changes a person. He reaches the highest thing. Like we say in the morning davening every single day, right? The elu dvarim sh'adam ochel peraseh b'olam hazeh v'akeren kemes le'olam haba. That Talmud Torah, that certain mitzvos are so great. They're on such a high level that the dividends a person collects in this world, but the principle is saved for when he leaves this world. But right, and there's a list, and the last one, Talmud Torah K'nei Kulam, the study of Torah is equivalent to all of them. Again, according to this Maharal, we can understand it. And when we engross ourselves in study of Torah, when we elevate that, we therefore elevate and uplift ourselves, we're able to connect to God, and we're able to leave all that excess, all that materialism, all the things, the illicit things. That's how we are able to overcome. And God willing, Mirz Hashem, we should always, every day of our lives, be involved in the study of Torah, and it will elevate us and it will change us and bring us closer to God. Take care.